People lie. There was some early buzz about this movie being like the best movie since Endgame and all that. I'm here to tell you the truth about this movie. What's happening, guys? Back at you with another video. So over the weekend we had the release of the newest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Thunderbolts, with an asterisk. So I was able to check it out over the weekend. Here's exactly what I thought about it. So a lot of early buzz was going around saying that this was actually the best movie since Endgame, the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie since Avengers Endgame that came out a few years ago. And you know, we all know how that movie was. Such a great, amazing movie. But I definitely had my doubts about this movie, and I had my doubts about the early buzz to where it was saying how this movie was the best since Endgame. So, of course, I went into this movie not with high expectations or anything like that. And I gotta say that this is definitely not the best movie since Endgame. There's definitely some other movies I will put above this that have come out since Endgame. You know, things like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. You know, a couple of those movies like that I'll actually put above Thunderbolts when it comes to movies after Endgame. But I'm not saying that this is a bad movie. By no means was this a bad movie. This was just a fun, solid movie. I had a decent, fun time with it. Some of the things I liked about this movie when it comes down to it was the whole team dynamic. There was a fun team dynamic going on throughout this whole movie to where you're bringing this ragtag group of characters together and they just trying to survive. They go through failure. They go through teaming up and trying to figure out all these differences between them. And overall, you just like seeing that. You know, you have fun watching that. You know, there's some taglines going around saying how these are not people who are super or anything like that. They're not the superheroes we deserve, but we got them anyway. And that really feels like it was in the movie. Now, going into this movie, these weren't really any of my top favorite MCU characters. You know, I like them and all, but they're not like top favorites of mine. But the way they were able to have them in this movie, have them team up and actually make you care more for these characters was really something. Definitely one of the standouts for me was Red Guardian. He is definitely more of the comedic beat throughout this movie. He had a lot of funny scenes and a lot of banter going on with the rest of the team. Yelena is definitely another standout to where she's a semi-pseudo leader, sort of taking over the leadership role. She's more of the emotional core for this movie when it comes to this team, where you get more emotional scenes with her. She's over there just putting herself out there, telling her feelings. So you get a lot of those emotional scenes with her character. And you see how she's overcoming this emotional trauma that she kind of has, where she's dealing with loss and loneliness. And one of the characters I was actually looking forward to seeing in this movie was Sentry. And I gotta say, I really like what they were able to do with the character of Sentry in this movie, to where they're basically introducing the character to us for the first time in this movie and into the MCU, to where his name is just Bob, and it's just kind of funny with him. Like when you first meet him or first see him in the movie, he's just this normal dude, it seems like. But you know, once he gets into his whole Sentry character, once you get into that whole other side of him, the Void, you really see how it comes together, how he's sort of complex in a way. So Sentry was one of those characters I was really looking forward to seeing in the MCU. So I really like what they're able to do with this character, and I'm definitely excited to see what they do to him in the future. But before this movie actually happened, I was really wondering how they were going to like translate this character into movie live action form. You know, dealing with the character from the comics to where he has a very checkered past, dealing with drug addiction and all that. I was wondering how they're going to like, you know, transfer that to a movie in a live action setting. And they don't really show him in that whole drug addiction phase going on. They just, you know, mention it. He drops a little hints and nods here and there. And, you know, they don't really fully go into it. But you kind of get, I wouldn't say as many emotional beats with him as you do with Elena, but you get a couple of things here and there, as especially when it comes to, you know, dealing with the third act battle. And speaking of the third act battle, I don't really want to say that it's anticlimactic, but it's not like your typical third act battles that you usually would get in a Marvel movie. This one is more of a mental and emotional battle to where you see these characters come together and become a team that you actually care for. Now, like I was saying, there was early buzz about this movie being like the best since Endgame and all that stuff going on. And to tell you the truth, I think that's a little over-exaggerated. You know, if a lot of people are saying that, I think that's definitely over-exaggerated. This movie will be overhyped or overrated if it was kept on saying that. For me personally, I wouldn't say that. I don't think I'll put this movie within my top 10 of the MCU. Maybe it could crack into the top 15. But the way that people are saying how Marvel's back, or this movie made Marvel come back, and oh, this is the best since Endgame, this is one of those movies that reminds me of the Marvel of old. I will say though, there is a little merit to saying that this reminds you of the Marvel of old. This feels like it was a movie that could have came out during Phase 2, Phase 3, to where we're getting those, solid to great movies. This definitely feels like a mid-tier sort of movie that could have came out during Phase 2, Phase 3, to where all the movies in that, phases were pretty much solid movies to good movies to great movies. This kind of feels like it could came out during those phases. I can see this movie being kind of on par with something like Ant-Man or Spider-Man Homecoming, Doctor Strange, some of those movies, some of those Phase 2 and Phase 3 movies that were coming out that were still pretty solid and good. When it comes to this movie, there is two post-credit scenes that are going on. The first post-credit scene is more for comedy, is more kind of funny, hilarious. When it comes to the second post-credit scene at the very end, that's the one that got me really excited for the future, and it actually gave me some slight goosebumps too. Overall, when it comes down to this movie, I had a fun, decent, solid time with this movie. It's definitely a little over-exaggerated, at least in my opinion, what people saying is the best since Endgame, but nonetheless, it's still a pretty good, solid movie that I at least had a decent, fun time with it that I overall kind of enjoyed. But let me know down in the comments below, did you actually check out this movie over the weekend? What did you think about it? But that's going to do it all for this video. Hope y'all all enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe and turn notifications on so you know I post another video. Hope y'all have an awesome day, and I'll see you on the next one.